breakdown, baby.
The modern Extreme Demon experience is about as enjoyable as being diagnosed with cancer. In Geometry Dash's short, micro-penis length existence, no two mediums have proven themselves more to combine together like milk and piss. On one end, you've got this movement of smelly nerds that dedicate their entire lives to making a bunch of rectangles get slightly brighter. And then on the other side of the canyon, you've got a bunch of hyperactive 10-year-olds in Discord calls shoving as much bullshit that'll possibly fit on a mildly refurbished iPhone 7 in an attempt to add an extra digit on their Fortnite fund. You couldn't get these two things to coexist in the same goddamn solar system, let alone the same level. Not only does the general player base violently protest whenever they see a modern level that isn't 6 stars, creating one of the things is one of the most tedious experiences you could ever go through. Making a modern level not look like total shit is already difficult enough, since you gotta position everything perfectly down to the very last pixel so it doesn't turn everything into an overstimulating mess to the point where everyone just gives up and makes squares. Dealing with squeezing all of that shit into the ridiculous Zumba moves that make up most extreme demons nowadays is like trying to put a square peg in a brick wall. And even if they could do it, a lot of them hate the demon list anyway and will be more than happy to remain in relative obscurity if it means that they don't have to deal with this horseshit. So every time someone tries to get one going, they eventually give up out of frustration and go consume their daily scheduled 5 terabytes of furry porn. Impeccable taste aside, it is difficult to emphasize enough just how long the list is of reasons why modern extreme demons will never work, unless of course if you're insane enough to waste your time playing the world's most minimalistic game of trial and error. So it comes to no surprise that it took 100 billion humans, exactly 299,997 years, for one of them to take a break from their mental health in order to complete the challenge. Introducing Neigefeu, part-time abstract modern glow creator and full-time name fucker. He's been bubbling under in the modern scene for a while and doing the tried and true routine of make a 5-star level, drop it in the magic section and then fuck off for 2 months before trying it again. And the levels were good. His relatively retro blend of colourful effects and modern stylings did a good job of bringing back the hectic romps of the 2.0 era that were just as colourful as they were sloppy. Needless to say, it was incredibly evident that he was miles better at building things than he is at naming things. Someone with a lot of potential that was certainly more than a welcome presence after another Monday of playing 55 straight split 72 levels, but a far cry from reaching the level of a once-in-a-lifetime talent that would set the whole world on fire with the power of wiggly lines. When a true master shows you their capabilities, it doesn't feel like playing a level as much as it feels like just getting flexed on. Levels that make you go, that's great that you can do that, but can you be a little shittier please? When you can begin to smell the fungus-like aroma from the carefully sculpted ass hairs, then you know you've found a true artist. So basically what I'm saying is that this man's levels weren't quite emasculating enough for my taste. But unfortunately for my manhood, this is 2020 and people are so bored from watching nursing homes implode that they resorted to the deplorable act of making some of the best levels in existence. Extreme demons not included of course, but knowing everything I've ever said, you guys could have probably guessed that by now. Batteries however were included for those who are wondering. 2020 did in fact let you power your Hot Wheels. Every couple of months some random fucker you've never heard of would drop a groundbreaking masterpiece out of sheer impatience. And even in a year that good, nobody was willing to step up to the plate and finally end the half-decade quest to give the Geometry Dash player base its first modern extreme demon. Every now and then there would be an attempt to get one going, but eventually they would all succumb to the mind-numbing tedium of building a triangle 100 billion times. If the level ever got finished at all, it would just come out half-baked and dumb. To become an official extreme demon and chill with the big boys, RobTop needs to give you one of his special stickers. And they weren't getting none of those since they're all covered in shit and piss. That was until late April of 2020 when everyone's 8th favorite modern creator witnessed all these dumbasses dropping straight dick and couldn't take it anymore. So he was like, alright, give me the mic fucko, let me show you what a real level looks like. And 20 minutes of keyboard assaulting later, Acu was born and promptly shoved onto the Square Game servers to be gawked at by the Pigeon Man. After 5 years of frustration, the first modern extreme demon was here and it was ready to fuck you up. When this baby came out, everyone who was even remotely into the level playing business poked their head out of whatever disgusting trench they came from to get a handful of its juicy goodness. It was unquestionably a smash hit, and deservedly so, because I don't know how in the shit this man got 10 times better at making levels in the span of just one, but whatever drugs this dude is taking to improve like this needs to be distributed to the people right this instant, otherwise I do not want you selfish ass stifling my creativity like I know you are. I know I'm the guy who goes around telling everyone to stop getting tricked by pretty lights, but come on, they're so pretty though. Call me maybe, but sometimes piling a bunch of pulses on top of each other just pays off every once in a while. The main reason why this thing works and these things make me want to vomit is just like that fat fucker from Kung Fu Panda, Neigefeu went through the many training gauntlets required to master the art of balance. The name of the game is Lightworks, and Acu is one of the best showcases of that and a mainstream extreme demon probably forever. Even when 2022 happened and people all of a sudden found out what light bulbs do, Acu was still competing with every new release without even breaking a sweat. When it comes to minimalism, less is more, and this man spared every expense possible with the block design here. Because why would you do all this like a fucking nerd when slapping some bright colored gradients over polygons works just as well? Lines are unnecessary when you've got 85,000 color triggers, which was something I probably should have thought of before accidentally sculpting live footage of what would happen if Pablo Picasso tried to pass a box of pastels through his urethra. Acu, on the other hand, is incredibly bright. So bright, in fact, that he had to add a state-of-the-art dim mode so people could play it for more than 15 minutes at a time without requiring the vision of Zeus in order to admire the barely visible rainbows that are on screen for 0.8 seconds. The messiness still isn't completely left though, as there are loads of things that are somehow way too hyperactive. Everything is constantly moving, clunking, or jiggling around, which works for the stuff in the middle ground. Still, not all 500,000 objects have to be on the same springboard spawn trigger loop, because having a bunch of polygons phase in and out of existence is the straw that breaks this level's minimalistic appeal. This level needs to take its meds fast. Finding that barbecue balance between too much and too little has been one that's plagued mono level since its conception in ancient Greece, especially because of how subjective it is. What is empty to one person is a claustrophobic fever dream to another. Even with the best creators, pretty good is about as close to perfection as anyone will ever get. However, if you pause the screen right here, you may notice that your computer has been struck by lightning and you now have 4 seconds left to live, which is actually a full 3 seconds longer than you would have lasted if you tried a coup for yourself before dying to one of the level's mini cheese wheels. Yes, the civil is very hard, and unless you're a 23-year-old incel that spends 18 hours a day beating levels with one hand and pulverizing the meat and smithereens with the other, you probably can't beat it. Which for most extreme demons is evidently a good thing, but for some reason Neigefeu made this one good, which is highly illegal and fucked up as... Oh wait, he's got a permit. We're good. Playing Acu was kinda like being 5 years old and seeing the big kids playground for the first time, because unless you're like me and waste your life playing minion demons from the Stone Age, this level is restricted as this giant linear obstacle course of colorful calamity and you can't touch it. However, this time instead of the Nazis that made the goddamn monkey bars too high, it's because you're expected to be able to do this part, and this part, and this part, and this part, and this part, not this part, and this part. I've named all the parts because they're all the hardest part. And because part 2, this level is a rare instance of something being in the upper echelons of difficulty and also having each and every part of it being perfectly consistent in hazard, which as we've come to learn is far from guaranteed, especially if you go hunting down on the plague of humanity that is a demon list. You'll notice that pretty much all of them are mostly smooth sailing for 98%, and then now that you've reached the end, GD Hamburger 556's 2-second part begins, and now you have exactly 1/100th of a second to learn how to master the art of interdimensional spin jitsu. If you look back over at Acu, since it was actually made by someone who believes in the concept of fun, he went against the Extreme Demon rulebook and decided that it might be a good idea if we socialize the dash of timings. Then he calls up everyone on his contacts list if they can supply their best herbicides, and by the power of having way too many friends, all the bugs have been fucking obliterated, except for the one where the saw blades get sad if you touch them, because even though they kill you instantly, they're also very ticklish, hence why they'll bounce around like the electrons orbiting the delicious orphan jelly that lays inside Joe Biden's stomach, which as we all know from the man who lives inside the Burger King parking lot is what they use to power the White House's parliamentary duties, such as forcing the mailman to take 5 extra months to bring me my double milk cheese sticks and putting those dumbass triple spikes to the end of Extreme Demons, instead of good things like bombing impoverished nations. That all relates to Acu, I think. So yeah, for the first modern Extreme Demon, good job. You've really... Mischievous run by Who Cares is a level that was released around 3 months after Acu that no one remembers because it wasn't good. God used a big scholastic rubber to erase it from everyone's brain matter because it's old and gross, but realistically was forgotten because the average Geometry Dash player doesn't know how to spell mischievous due to having too many letters for them to count on their fat ass fish fingers. Its incredible lack of goodness can be explained due to the host hilariously cucking himself out of being able to fix this level's glaring problems because he apparently made his own level too hard for himself, which is very funny. Please point and laugh at the 5-year creating veteran who never stopped to think about how levels actually need to be verified to be released on the servers. But unbeknownst nearly every living being to walk the face of the earth, he also accidentally cucked himself out of something a little more valuable than just internet clout. And in order to explain what I mean by that, I think it's about time that I finally come clean. I know everyone loves to blindly believe everything mediocre Geometry Dash YouTubers say, but if you did in this instance, you'll be following the word of a dirty dog liar, because one of these 2 levels came out first, and it's definitely not the one that I've been rambling on for the past 68 hours. If I kept up the charade like virtually everyone else has been for the past 50 months, no one would even think about saying a word. The closest anyone ever gets to preserving this level's place in history is when some dickhead who got 47% on club steps spreads the lie much further, and one of the 6 modding creators who are insane enough to go on the official Geometry Dash Discord Discord server just happens to be there to catch him in the act. Not that it would be a good idea to blame him for it, because these little munchkins are far from the biggest perpetrators in this grand conspiracy. For that, you had to go straight to the source. The grand hub of journalistic heights never been seen since the rise of WikiFeet. I'm of course talking about the Anticlimax King, that is the Geometry Dash fan wiki, whose articles are very comprehensive and detailed because they say so. Kendra Kumar would be very proud of your showmanship, boys. On this website, you can find many basic facts about various overexposed demonless fillers and also painfully mediocre YouTubers presented like their secret intelligence directly from the FBI's Great Vault of Knowledge. Heading past the many 1800-word descriptions of Juniper's toe jams, you'll find the entry for the living, breathing embodiment of above average that we all know and greet with a strong shrug today. You know this one's a real winner because it takes them until almost 90% of the article is over to cite a single source. Scroll past the creepily detailed gameplay description and back to the top of the page. What do we see? A pork riblet Subway sandwich that currently costs $25. But if I take it off the screen, you'll see a description that says Acu is considered to be one of the first modern extreme demons to ever be released, which is quite the claim, and I guess it is one of the first in the same way that my dog that shits everywhere is one of the first pieces of multi-cell life to ever exist, considering that the phrase one of can extend as far as you want, which in this case is to infinity. Those two numbers are not even remotely close to each other. There are more levels differentiating these two than people that fuck sheep. 20 people made this thing, and yet they all share a single communal brain cell. And despite the fact that this information is so oversimplified to the point that it's just fucking lying, this specific webpage is apparently the Enchiridion of modern history, considering how often it gets beamed into the eyeballs of every player ever, but not before being simplified even further from one of the nearly first to the very first, and therefore the civil was never real, somehow. In all my years manually voyaging the 7 seas like a stinky pirate dumbass, I've never seen a bigger punishment for making a bad level than this, possibly ever. Dudes make a bad level once and their entire existence gets wiped out from history. Like, damn, get wrecked, bitch. Maybe if you made a better level, you would have not had your body get chucked into the sun in Mark 6. Acu may have 6 times the amount of liquid funds as Mischievous Run and 50 times better name quality, and I know this may sound crazy, but leaving chunks out of history might not be a great idea. Like, come on fellas, just think about all the great levels we're missing out on. What would we as a community be without Ask Madden Football? Not that Acu got a great deal either, because these guys treat historical significance like Johnny Sins treats vagina flesh. All this information about how hard it is and all the giant butthole spikes it has and how I actually beat it in very few attempts, actually less than anyone else on earth. My cock is ginormous, I swear, you just can't see it. Since level can be prayed around once conquered like the world's dumbest trophy, that's all most people give a fuck about. Every bit that doesn't benefit them personally can be thrown into the bins from behind the world's most crime-ridden Burger King for all they care. And if they're willing to chuck out that, what else has been completely lost to time? Turns out, basically everything that isn't popular enough to get one of Stormfire's famous 35-minute readings. This has proven to certainly have its upsides by acting as a natural dog shit remover, but more importantly so far, its negative impacts have been proven to be quite fucky. I want you right now to try to tell me what the first modern level is. Here's a hint, it's none of these. To the contrary of what everyone in the solar system assumes without ever checking, Optical never actually invented modern. He was a pioneer late into its original development for sure, but the only reason people think he invented anything at all is because he said he did, when he put in the description for some reason, despite it not really being his to begin with. His first modern level was inspired by other modern creators, and it's understandable that no one ever brings that fact up, considering that it's some pretty top secret info if you struggle to read more than one sentence at a time. This is the earliest point where the community has consensus over what is and what isn't the real McCoy. So despite the historical fuckies I just detailed 5 seconds ago, it's for the best that we start here if we want to find modernism's big stinky ancestors. Following the paper trail further from one of the names listed on this bad boy leads us to fellow sheepfucker Galvatron. He's a fella who instantly makes OGs in the creating scene soil their pantaloons as he's kind of a big deal. I wasn't paying attention to him at the time because I was too busy eating cheese dust from behind a dumpster, but even my goofy ass knew that whatever was happening in this section was a massive early 2.0 achievement. He also confirms the previously unknowable existence of people that live in New Zealand that aren't me, but more importantly, in this layer of the conspiracy is Drift, preceding Optical's Resolute by many moons, and is clearly a level that is nobody doubts at modern. After all, flat out simplism is about as modern as it gets. But unfortunately for Galvatron, back then this wasn't quite the case. About this deep in the wormhole is entering the point where blur starts to be noticeable and resolution is lowered. The terminology for whatever all of this is was yet to be decided upon, as Geometry Dash's finest intellectuals were too busy actually making stuff to indulge in the spoils of abstract art philosophy. Back in the gay old days when the whole area of modern was just a couple dozen 13-year-olds with iPad minis playing about with the color wheel, things were mostly done out of experimental curiosity. Nobody had any clue what the movie would blossom into over time, since they can't see the future on account of not being a smart magic man like Will Smith. The mid-2010s was an era when the future was entirely hidden behind a thick layer of cloud and 2 more layers of whale piss. This was a new frontier, and the forgotten pioneers of the past hadn't seen anything like what was about to take place. except for this one small detail. Sunset was an ancient genre from the days of when Archimedes was still alive to shit in buckets, and was created when Jazor had the ingenious idea of making the same level 7 fucking times. He did this by taking a normal level and then turning everything into black silhouettes because it was 2014 and colors weren't invented yet. Then he put all the detail into the pulses and shifting of the background and simulating the effect of what it looks like in the late stages of a sunset. It was unique and allowed for a rare instance of 1.7 abstract expressionism in a universe where RobTop couldn't be fucked to add a second color channel. It was as clever as it was extremely easy to replicate. Jazor quickly milked the style for 7 entries in total, equating to a gardening tool gain of at least 130% of my entire creating career. Other people in the community seem to be feeling the black power, because in 2.0, Sunset Effect became a staple genre in the level making business. Such a staple that one of the breakout stars is currently the 56th most liked level in history. For reference, this is the amount of likes Acu has, which I bet you could all agree is pretty bloody big, and this number makes that number seem like a tiny little baby. This is all despite the fact that the level itself looks like it was made by a 4-year-old. Skip forward a while and we get the advent of Sunrise, the opposite of Sunset, and a genre that would be sure to make a clansman proud. It featured lots of saturated colors and fun times that fit better with a pure white block design. Sound familiar? Now that we've got the look all gentrified and sexy, it's only a matter of time that someone transforms it into something special. Which brings us to the final level in the chain. A level so deeply buried into the conspiracy that after 7 years of suppression, it doesn't even exist anymore. Here it is. We've finally arrived. The minimalism, the bright colors, the at the time futuristic effects, this is where it all began. Even though it only contains 2 parts that don't even add to 30 seconds, Synthetic by Verticality with 2 L's is one of the most important Geometry Dash levels ever. It's technically unfinished, but it was the unfinished level that started it all. Verticality's name isn't exactly someone who's remembered anywhere beyond an extremely tiny subsect of perpetually virginal Geometry Dash lifers, but he's the real founding father of what we know as modern today. Without him, there would be no Optical, no Sputniks, no Zendergame, no Knots, no Neigefeu, no Acu. Disposed of like a used paper cup. Even Verticality didn't want his own level, he just deleted it off the servers one day, one re-upload away from becoming lost media. In a landscape where history is written by the victors, the only way to survive is to be truly one of a kind. Something that is such an exception in its field that everyone has no choice but to pay attention to you. Today, modern creators are among the most beloved and respected around by hundreds of thousands of supporters, but it wasn't always like that. For years, modern was bubbling well under the surface in terms of mainstream respect, with only a few exceptions managing to break through. But with Acu, all that changed. When Neigefeu's minor magnum opus hit, the general player base finally put down their arms, stopped being dismissive cunts for a moment, and listened. After all these years of pushback and mockery by the world's most annoying cockbags, finally it was modern's turn to be fucking everywhere for a change. The rest of the genre might have been collectively pushed out of the annals of history, but in 2020, one Lone Ranger managed to wriggle on inside that butthole, forming a chrysalis-like shape for discussion to grow, mostly from 14-year-old incels about what category a teeth monster it belonged to. But that's not important. Neigefeu's 2020 Neigefeu special might only be a small chain in what is a massive contemporary art movement, but there's nothing more delicious than seeing it be preserved eternally in a big thick glass case the size of your mum. Alright, that's a bit far. Nothing's that big. Just big enough to be noticed, and in an attention economy like this, there is nothing out there that's more valuable. Except for a Geometry Dash YouTuber that doesn't fuck kids, but those are unconfirmed to exist, so for now we got sick levels. Acu fucking rips. Not exactly as hard as something like Penis Man Adventures 2, which is the best level of all time, but to summarize the sausage sizzle, I am very glad this level exists. I'm feeling a strong decent to a light good on this LV. Not enough shake triggers. Neigefeu, you had a good run, but unfortunately you're going straight in the trash, cause you aren't nearly as good as Minions by Taco Macho. A real man's level for real men like me. Stay tuned for my next video where I cut my dick off in front of a live studio audience. Where am I?